special guest today, Dave Drabik. We're going to try something a little bit different so Dave doesn't have to sit here and listen to me talk about partners and ads. So I'm going to be full screen first, and then we'll go to a split screen with Dave. So let's just talk about it. I am now a proud partner with the Geek Vibes Nation, which is a website that has gaming, tech, sports, movies, podcasts. It's a huge website. There's tons of people on there. They have a huge Twitter account, and everybody check it out. So Geek Vibes Nation will have our video podcast for Lights Camera Pro, and it'll also have our audio podcasts on their podcast section under entertainment. And I'm very excited to work with those guys. Also, I'm going to go to a short ad here for Restream, who's a partner. So here we go. Restream is a service that takes your live and sends it to several places like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, like we're doing today. It also has a live studio, which you can see here, which is very cool. You can do the same thing I'm doing with eCam, which I'll talk about in a second. Roll in video, roll in ads, and it's a very, very cool piece of software. Also, eCam. The logo down in the bottom is the software that I'm using to go live. I can roll in video clips, audio clips, music, sound effects, which I've never used before. Let's just try it. All right, somebody clapping. Glockenspiel. There you go. And you can do all kinds of cool stuff. And then we have logos, and we have pictures, and then we get comments from the 5 places we're sending it to: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and our comments, and we could put the comments live. And I'm trying to figure out a thing where you can bring people live onto the podcast. We tried it last week with Jimmy Guthrie, and it didn't work, but we're going to figure that out. So today we are talking, that's all the partners we have. But today we are talking with Dave Drabik. Hey, Dave, you're live.
Hey,
how you doing?
Just pouring my water. Good. How are you, Sean?
All right, very cool, man. I'm so excited to have you here. We're going to talk about your production company, Fine Line Productions. We're going to talk about your amazing career working for Letterman, Bill Maher, Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, on and on, the Espys, so many things. So it's going to be a fun show today. How's everything?
Things are great, buddy. I mean, you know, we're in a pandemic and all that, but other than the pandemic, things are great.
Right. And I saw your new video for your company, Fine Line Productions, we're going to show later. You're talking about working during the pandemic and how it's different and how there's masks and stuff. I mean, we can just go into it if you want. How is it different working? Because you've done some shoots since the pandemic started, yeah?
Well, yeah, all businesses are kind of reinventing themselves right now, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. So, it's, you know, I have friends who work for Coke, and things are different there too. But the production business, obviously, a lot more virtual content, almost virtually all virtual content, I guess. And again, you're kind of a product of this. We're streaming right now, and people are getting really used to that. It's becoming the new normal, which is great. So we're doing a lot. We just produced a show this spring, or co-produced with another company, a friend of mine, called the Georgia High School Musical Theater Awards, or Schuler Awards.
Right.
Usually that's at the Cobb Energy Center every year with, you know, more than 2,000 high school students sitting in the audience screaming their heads off. This year they were screaming from home. And our host was on an iPhone, and we rolled in pieces that we pre-shot, kind of. We put in a virtual choir with almost 40 students all singing.
I saw that, yeah.
2 brilliant musical directors who worked on that show, and we were able to pull off a pretty nice hour of TV that aired on Georgia Public Broadcasting. That was our first official foray into something that broadcast on TV, and that was great. So, yeah, it's virtual, it's different, but when we do shoot, we have masks. We have, you know, our certified, you know, Georgia certified safety officer with Karen Oberman, who handles production for Fine Line Productions. She used to handle all the production for Mythbusters, and she's got a great resume herself. But now she's certified in the state of Georgia to make sure we're being COVID safe on the set as well.
Very cool. Yeah, and I saw a lot of that with the Democratic National Convention last night. There's a lot of
Sure.
people shooting on their iPhones in their houses, and obviously they weren't in a stadium. They were in an arena. They were, obviously everybody was home, and it still went off, and the NFL draft went off, and now the NBA playoffs are going off. So
Right.
it's a new world. It's a new thing, but production goes on, and Tyler Perry's shooting his show. Everybody's making movies. It's just you have to do it in a very safe environment.
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's go to the first question that we always go to with guests, Dave, and that is, how did you know you wanted to be in the film and TV industry? Were you a kid? Were you in college? Did something hit you? A movie? What made you know you wanted
Sure.
to do this?
Well, the short answer is that there was nothing else I could do. Real jobs just didn't feel like an option for me. But the longer answer is that it started, I guess, when I was a kid. I would see stand-up comedians on TV, and it would blow my mind, like, oh, you can stand in front of people and make them laugh. And being the youngest of 6 kids in my family, I was able to kind of, play that role in my family to some degree. Still do, I think. So that was nice to be able to make people laugh. I just loved how it felt. And so when I got to college, I actually didn't pursue it because I think I was just afraid to. I didn't know that was a real option. I got an economics degree, so I would know how poor. Yeah, so I know just how poor I was going to be if I pursued entertainment, and that's worked out well. No, but after college, I remember like one of the resumes I sent out in college was to Kroger. I'm like, oh my God, and nothing against Kroger.
Right.
The fine supermarket chain. Love Kroger, great food. What am I doing applying to Kroger? So I moved to New York. I did stand-up for the first time in my life. Got a job as a production assistant in some kind of show, a pilot that was being shot, friend of a friend. And then moved back to the D.C., Baltimore area, did stand-up for a while. Realized, and I was doing sketch comedy, improv in Georgetown. We had a show every Saturday night at midnight at a theater. It was an art house kind of theater. They would show foreign films or independent films. And at midnight, we would do an improv show every Saturday. Yeah, and the guy was great. We would get anywhere from 10 to 50 or 60 people on a good night in the audience. He wasn't making any money on us, but we had a great place to perform. But the deal was this. I was the generation of stand-up comedians after the guys who all did it in strip clubs. That was kind of a badge of honor.
I know Jay Leno did it in strip clubs because he went to my school, Emerson. I read that story.
Oh, is that right?
Jay Leno he started in strip clubs, yeah.
Yeah, all those guys have done it, right? Yeah. And I'm like, whether I didn't pursue it, which I didn't pursue it, but it just wasn't not my era. But I will say that I believe the Biograph was showing X-rated films in the daytime. And then art house films at night. Right. And then us at midnight on Saturday. So I'm like, well, I have that, right? I mean, when you're young, you're doing anything you can do to, get your art in front of people. So anyway, so we had a good audience from the local colleges there and stuff like that. It was great. But then more stand-up, and I realized that I'm better at writing for other people than I was for myself. Okay. I was getting better. I was, there's 3 stages of stand-up. You open, you MC shows, you feature, you're the middle act, or you're the headliner. And I was just getting to a point after several years of actually closing some shows sometimes, and it was great. But at the same time, I spent my time out there. This is how old I am. I took a fax machine with me. I bought the smallest fax machine I could find. And I would get to my hotel room or my condo or wherever I was, and I would plug it in, and I had a typewriter with me, an old word processor, and I would type jokes. I would send them to Jay, and I would send them to Dave, and I would send them to Kevin Nealon at SNL, or Bill Maher when he was doing Politically Incorrect back on Comedy Central. And they would slowly start buying my jokes. And I was like, wow, this is, to me, more natural to write for them. And eventually that led to a job on staff at David Letterman. Okay,
I definitely want to talk about Letterman and Maher. It's so cool. But can you just say, for the people who are doing it now, I know it's different now, but how did you get the connection? Because that's what everybody's missing, right? Everybody's missing, okay, of course, you're going to send 1 million emails to, I don't know what the show is now, like Seth Meyers or whatever. Sure. But nobody's going to read them. How did you get the connection?
There's a huge barrier to entry, right?
Right. Yeah. So how do you get someone to read your fax or read your email?
Right. And I don't know if it's easier or harder now because the internet's connected so many people.
Mm.
I know of people, and I probably know them directly. I don't know their stories, but I know of people who've been funny on Twitter, and all of a sudden the people at Jimmy Fallon Show are reading their Twitter account, and then Seth Macfarlane, retweets it. Now they blow up. Now they got 1,000 followers, 10,000 followers,
right.
and they're hired literally on staff. So that is a way in.
Mm-hmm.
I have a writer who I've hired. I'm thrilled to hire him. He runs a NASCAR Twitter account called NASCAR Chasm.
Okay.
He's brilliantly funny. He knows the sport. He followed his passion, so he started tweeting about NASCAR in a very funny way. And now he works for NASCAR and for Fine Line when we do the show, the award show at the end of the season. So
That's
those
cool.
are ways in. The way I did it was a different era. I would literally tape the shows at night and write down the staff members on the credit roll, right? And Letterman didn't run credits every night. It was trickier there, but they would run them. I'd be like, oh, okay, who's this guy? Who's this girl? With Jay, it was easier. With Jay, I was doing stand-up in clubs, so you're networking. You're always networking. And somebody in a club told me Jay will buy jokes for $50 a joke back then.
Wow.
And all you have to do is call the show, talk to Helen, his manager barrier, and she would screen you somehow. It was pretty easy. And if they let you, then you could fax them jokes every day. And Jay read, I think, anywhere from 800 to 1,000 jokes a day. It was insane. I mean, the guy's the real deal. He works hard to make his monologue what it is, or was. Anyway, so that kind of got the ball rolling, and then that led to I saw Kevin Nealon in a club, and I said, hey, Kevin, I've written some jokes for Jay or for whoever, and he invited me to submit jokes to him when he was hosting a Weekend Update on SNL.
Wow.
And then that bled into writing for Norm when Kevin left. So Norm was the same way. So back then, literally, but I remember at Letterman, I think I read the credits, and I called one day to try to find out who the right person was. I don't know what these names mean, associate producer or whatever. You know what writer and head writer is, but and I knew I wasn't asking the right question, but I forget what it was, but I had to find out who the right person was. They went, oh, no, that's not them. You need to speak to so-and-so. I went, oh, okay, great, thanks. Click. I literally waited 2 days to call back so they wouldn't know it was me calling again. I was so concerned they would recognize my voice, right?
Right.
But I got a phone call. I somehow sent my stuff up there, and Bill Sheft used to run the monologue for Dave. Kind of Dave's right hand on all things monologue and other aspects of the show as well. And Bill called me one day and said, hey, I like some of your jokes. We have some fax position, situations that we can maybe work out with you or whatever. And that led to me doing a lesser role for about a year, submitting stuff, and then a year on the show. So you look for the loophole. Today it's social media, or you have a cousin who has a friend who's got a sister or whatever.
Right.
You look for the loophole. That was my loophole back then. But then once you have the opportunity, and my kids are sick of me saying this, but the rule at Dave's early on was you never submit less than 10 jokes. Bill said, I need 10 jokes every day by noon. That was the rule.
Wow.
If you can't write at least 10 jokes every day about the news by noon and get it to me, I have a lot of guys and girls knocking on my door. So my rule was I never sent less than 20. I was like, I'm up at 6, 7 every morning reading, back in the day, 3 newspapers. Now you can go on the internet and find stuff, but back then it was just coming in and, downloading a USA Today page on the internet back then with dial-up was not, time friendly. So anyways, so I submitted, at least 20, 25, 30 jokes a day for about a year. And Bill called me and said, hey, come on up to New York. So that led to that, which led to moving to LA to work for Bill Maher and eventually Cartoon Network.
Oh, very cool.
Which seems like a weird progression, right?
So I've talked to guys who worked on that 70s show. I've talked to guys who worked on Family Guy, and you have these writer rooms with 12 people and they break off into other rooms. Is it similar on a comedy show?
It's different on every show. I've never written scripted, sitcom type of stuff. I mean, I have written some specs and, bits and pieces, done some punch up, but I haven't been in a sitcom writer's room. So I can't say it's the same or not, but I bet it's similar. We certainly had, at Letterman, we were trying to do a video quiz. We would all sit there and watch the clips in the writer's room together and just kind of throw stuff out. So yeah, and you want to throw something funny out, and you don't want to throw something not funny out.
Right.
I've heard some of your podcasts. I forget who was talking about it, but it can be kind of cutthroat at some of those places. Not always. I did about a dozen Espy Awards, and it was a very supportive, like, man, just like it was just like taking a warm bath once a year. You just feel great working with these guys, and you're building stuff for girls or whoever's in the room. With Bill Maher, we would write monologue all morning long, and then around 1 o'clock he would come in, 1 or 2 o'clock, I forget, and he would eat his lunch while we just basically pitched him ideas to have on the show that night, or to however we wanted to do it, whenever. It could be an idea that's going to live later in the week. Some stories have more legs than others. And that was a little bit of a pressure cooker. I mean, you're certainly trying to make Bill Maher laugh, for an hour or two every afternoon. But and that, I'm sure that's true in any writer's room, though. Time to turn on the funny and just put ideas out there.
Right. And what is he like? Because Wayne Johnson was on here talking about Ted, and Art David was talking about Ted Turner, and the guy has he gets paid $10,000 a minute, so he's got no time, and he's just walking in, shoots it. Paid? Something like that. That's what Art said. But he just go in, shoot the thing, throw off his headphones, throw his microphone off his shirt, and walk away. And there was no more takes. And because he's so busy, and Bill, I would imagine, is super busy too. So is he just like matter of fact and whatever? Or is he jokey? What is Bill like?
Yeah, in the room, I mean, he's exactly my office mate back there. A guy shared an office with a friend of mine who was a comedian. I knew him from the road, and then all of a sudden we're sharing an office together in Los Angeles on Bill's show for ABC.
Right.
And he said that, because we get asked these questions from time to time, what's it like to work there? What's Bill like? What's Dave like? Whatever. And Bill's answer was always about Bill. My office mate Bill was talking about Bill Maher. Said he's exactly who you see on TV.
Okay.
I mean, if you think he's a really funny, smart guy, then you'll see him as a really funny, smart guy. If you think, I don't agree with him and he's kind of a jerk, well, then that's probably going to be your impression.
Right.
He's very genuine, I think. And could he be tough in the room? Yeah. But would he laugh? If you put him a right joke, he would just roll out of his chair laughing. So that was the goal. Your goal on any show is to make the showrunner laugh, right? To make the host laugh.
Right.
Literally, and we worked with Drew Carey a few years ago when he hosted the NASCAR awards.
Right.
And it was kind of a lesson to me, because he brought a couple of his guys in, and then we had me and my team. And Drew, I'd never met him before, never worked with him. He just wants to be around people who make him laugh. That was my takeaway from the week.
Yeah.
And I thought, how great is that? And I kind of have tried to put that into my company, Fine Line. We don't always do funny stuff. We do a lot of philanthropic, heart-tugging stuff. We do a lot of straight-up corporate video or TV. But we do a lot of comedy. Like UPS will bring us in to do a funny internal video, or Home Depot or whatever, to do a funny internal video. And how great is that? I'm going to bring in these two writers and get them to pitch ideas, and I'll add to it, and we'll just try to make each other laugh. On the NASCAR awards, we do that every year. It's just so much fun.
Right. It sounds like fun. Yeah, I remember seeing comedians in cars drinking coffee with Jerry Seinfeld and Bill Maher, and I was just so surprised that he seemed really sweet, and he seemed like a very calm man. And on the show, he comes across, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I love the show, but for some people, he offends them. But, you're like, I can't believe he just said that. That's what I would want to say, but I can't believe he just said that. So it's almost like some of his stuff is shocking. And then as a man being interviewed with Jerry Seinfeld having coffee and dessert, he just seemed like a very calm, sweet guy. So it's kind of interesting. All these
guys will have that side of themselves.
Yeah.
They got to be normal human beings, right? We all put our pants on one leg at a time. So Bill can definitely be that guy. We only dealt with him in a professional environment, and honestly didn't have a ton of interaction outside of the meeting every day with him, very rarely outside of that meeting. People kind of want to hear that so-and-so was a jerk or whatever.
Right.
And they would ask me about Dave back in the day. And back then, I think his viewership every night was 4 million people or something. And I would say, can he be tough? Yeah, but if I had 4 million people judging me with every word
day,
coming out of my mouth, I might not be a very easy-going person myself. I don't think I would handle that very well. So,
Yeah, I was surprised to hear about Seth Macfarlane because the guy's such a workaholic, does so much content and does so many voices.
Unbelievable, yeah.
And that he's just a very sweet, quiet guy normally, and he just sort of takes everything in and then unloads it on the show and the voiceovers and the impressions and just nails it. So I'm just interested in people and how they are off camera. I'm interested in behind the scenes. So
Yeah, well, that's what was fascinating about. I mentioned Drew, but that was cool to me. He just sat across a table and we just all talked, and he just wants to laugh. I mean, who doesn't want to laugh, right?
Right. So that's a lot of fun. All right. So indulge me for 1 second. These are people that you know mostly, but I just want to do a little shout out to some people who have supported the podcast, and I've been looking for the right moment. So drink some water or something. But you're here, and we're not going off camera. I just want to say thank you out loud to these people who have supported the podcast a lot. And that is Nicole Gustin, Mike Thomas, Glenn Fisher, Wayne Johnson, Bill Baker, Jim Rendell, Matt Price, Steve Henderson, and Bob Juergens. There's so many other people, but these people have really been supportive. And I'll
be on that list next time.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on the list next time. But thanks to everyone, but these people especially. So just wanted to throw that in there, take a little break. But let's move on to the Espys. And unfortunately, there's 2 hilarious clips that you have on your website, and everybody should go see it. It's finelineproductions.com or...
Correct. Yep. Or we have a YouTube channel as well, Fine Line Productions on YouTube as well.
And there's a Will Ferrell clip where he's at the Espys, and it's absolutely singing a song, absolutely hilarious. And then Justin Timberlake does like an 8-minute piece at the Espys, and it's so crazy to see those people younger. There's a lot of basketball stars or football stars that are very young there, like Tom Brady and Dwayne Wade. But also, he just does an incredible job. They're such fun pieces, but unfortunately, because of copyrights, we can't show them. We wanted to show them, but maybe you can talk about working at the Espys and those pieces.
Yeah, I got good stories on both of those, actually. They were fantastic. Actually, over my shoulder is the certificate for the Emmy Award nomination for the Justin Timberlake song. We lost to some guy named Hugh Jackman. I've
never heard of him.
Yeah, we lost to some guy named Hugh Jackman that year, who also sang an original song on the Oscars, I believe.
Yes.
But Justin was phenomenal. He just worked his tail off. He rehearsed, literally, I think he couldn't stand up anymore. He just rehearsed. They had to find extra space for him because he just wanted to make it so great. But we would have, as part of I did about a dozen Espy Awards, and I would, we would have a writer's retreat. And for several years, we went to the Hamptons.
Oh, wow.
That's the great place
bad.
ever. So we're staying at this hotel in the Hamptons, and we would have these all day long meetings of just pitching ideas and this and that and what the show can be. And at this point, the show's everywhere, right? So it was a lot of SNL people who'd work with Justin because he'd done a lot of funny stuff on that show. So those were the guys that he trusted. And then it was our team that did the Espys every year who knew the sports and all that. So it was a nice kind of merging of those 2 worlds. And so we're pitching this song idea, and like it could have a ballad part, and it could have this fast part, maybe barbershop quartet. Like we want to cover all the genres of music in this 8-minute epic song. And so then after 2 days of brainstorming, they said, okay, Dave, why don't you go off write this part, and so-and-so go write this part. So I remember sitting on my balcony overlooking the sound or whatever, the ocean, the sound, whatever, off of the Hamptons.
Right.
And I'm writing the opening lyrics to this, what they use almost word for word, which blows my mind because there's a million rewrites in this stuff. And my stuff survived all the way to air, a big chunk of it. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? I'm literally looking at the ocean, typing on my laptop, a song for Justin Timberlake to sing. Life could be worse.
So crazy.
So I turned it in, and a few weeks later, the songwriter gives it back to us, and there's my lyric, verse word for word for my part of it. And if you go hit that link, he opens that part of the song. This is very ballad, heartfelt kind of thing, and it was just a lot of fun. But again, hardworking guy, just as nice as he could be. I mean, just amazing. The Will Ferrell one was hilarious because we would do a song almost every year on the Espy Awards, a parody often with fake lyrics to a real song that people recognize. Justin's was original, but usually it would be a parody kind of song or a blues song. Samuel L. Jackson sang a blues song one year. But we got word that Will Ferrell wanted to sing a popular melody we all knew, but but reunite Lance Armstrong, who was the host of the show that year, and yeah, that has had its own story on it. But Lance was the host, so he wanted to reunite Lance Armstrong with his father, Neil Armstrong, or as I wrote, U.S. Space Commander and whatever, Neil Armstrong. Now, of course, that's not his dad. It was ridiculous. But he had this idea, and he wants Neil to come out in a spacesuit, and so I kind of headed up the team. I wasn't the head writer, but when it came to lyrics, that was kind of a strength of mine. And so I kind of headed up the team. Everybody wrote on it. I think everybody on the team got a line or two in the song, actually, and there was some brilliant, funny stuff in that song. And then we're sitting in the room with the executive producer, and she said, okay, now we need somebody to play Neil. And she's like literally looking at all of us down the line. She goes, Drabik. I went, oh my God, this is going to be great. So in that piece with Lance and Will and me, it's me in the spacesuit, but nobody knew that, which was great because I had a day job and I didn't need anybody to know that. I was working at Cartoon at the time. So I was using vacation to do it. But anyway, so we're out there, we're rehearsing, and we need a way to get into it. And Will had been great. I'd been able to pitch him a couple of ideas, and he was like, yeah, let's do that. And I'm like, really? Okay. And we're on stage with the stage manager and the producers, and we're all kind of talking and laughing and trying to, see what we're going to do, how to get into it. And he's like, oh, we got this piece ahead of time. I don't know how we can clear the stage. I said, and I just started, I had an idea and I laughed, but I visibly shook, just went, fuck. And Will leans over and said, what do you got? And I'm like, now I need to tell him the idea. He just asked me what my idea was, but I know that if the producer doesn't like it because it causes other logistical problems in the show, then I'm the guy who wanted Will to do this, and it's not going to. Anyways, so he said, what do you got? And I said, well, I was thinking, what if you come out of the audience? What if you interrupt Lance's speech and just come on stage and take over? He's like, oh my God, I love that. So the conversation goes on. He goes, hey, by the way, Dave had an idea. And I'm like, oh, great. if they hate it, it's on me now. Right. And then Will pitched my idea. And the stage manager said, oh, that would make it so much easier for us. I'm like, woo, thank goodness. So sure enough, he comes out of the audience. I come from the backstage where he calls me out on stage, and he sings a song to me as Neil Armstrong and Lance. It was just one of the most things I've ever gotten to do in my life. Yeah, it was absolutely hilarious. And he has a little decanter, a glass of wine. Yeah. And he's kind of drunk. And oh my God. Yeah, he's got a cocktail glass, which again, I'm literally backstage trying to find a bar that will give me a glass of apple juice to make it look like, bourbon or whatever. Right. And I race it out in the audience between commercials and I hand it to him. He's like, oh, great, thanks. It was just wonderful, crazy production. It's a live show. It must be so much fun to work on that stuff because you're just flying on the seat of your pants. You're not. Absolutely, yeah. Nothing's planned. You just have to roll with it and hope for the best. And then sometimes stuff like that comes out where it's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, so much fun. Okay, so I just want to tell you that, let's see here. Michael Dangerfield says, great to see Dave. Oh, exclamation point. Nice. Hey, Michael Dangerfield. How you doing, buddy? Our editor from back in the day as well. Yes, good to hear from you. Danger, as they called him. Danger. Anybody else want to comment or ask Dave questions? Go for it. Okay, so let's see. Where are we going now? We're going to go to Fine Line Productions. So I'm going to be a very good friend here, and I'm going to put up your logo. Nice. Fine Line Productions. So if you want to talk about it a little bit and introduce the Sizzle Reel, it's your production company, and you said it's your co-owner with a woman from Mythbusters. What's her name? Yeah, not a co-owner, but she does as much as I do for Fine Line. Right. Karen Oberman, K-O. She has a wonderful resume, crazy experience in production. She was working out in California for years for Mythbusters. But she moved to Atlanta a few years ago to be with family, and we started doing projects together. So she's come into Fine Line in more of a full-time role. So basically, she runs the production side of things, schedules, logistics, crews, all that. I get to focus on the creative, and it's been a really great kind of partnership. So fantastic. And anything you want to say before we run the video? It's going to be full screen with audio. Yeah, we brought this reel up a couple months ago after that. the virtual High School Musical Award show that we did, because we thought, oh, maybe we should update and let people know that we're still, able to work in this new environment. So it's got some of the old cartoon stuff on it. It's got, some of the latest work that we've done. And there you go.
Okay, here we go. This is the Fine Line Productions Sizzle Reel, just done. And the voiceover is done by Steve Henderson, who was also a guest on the show. Hey, Steve. I don't know if he's watching, but here we go.
For years, Fine Line Productions has been producing quality content for television, corporations, educational outlets, and philanthropic organizations, while working with some of the country's top talent. And because we've adopted a series of safety protocols, we want you to know that your next production can continue as planned. Several of these protocols were utilized on our recent virtual production of this year's Georgia High School Musical Theater Awards for PBS.
And this year's Schuler Award for Best Lighting Design goes to Lucy Berry, Phil Vasieg, Rabin Gap Nakuchi School.
This broadcast utilized high-definition video and quality audio, all recorded and uploaded remotely. And it even featured a virtual choir with more than 30 students.
You gotta believe, you gotta hold on.
But that's not all Fine Line is doing to ensure your safety while elevating your video's production value. We have FAA-licensed 4K drone pilots for spectacular supporting footage. We can repurpose previously filmed video or utilize stock images. And we have budget-friendly graphics to take the place of live shoots. Of course, one of my favorite ways to enhance the production value is with the help of
Professional voice talent.
Your safety will always be our highest priority. So when you're ready to get rolling on your next production, just know that Fine Line is ready too.
Very cool. Very cool sizzle reel, man. Lots of cool stuff in there. So I saw Cher Guthrie in there, who's Jimmy's wife, and she's
done voiceover and been on-camera actors for us on occasion. She's fantastic.
Okay, and who's the guy with the beard? I worked with him at Turner on a couple projects. Pito Montiego.
Montague?
Yes.
Let's just call him Pito.
Let's just call him Pito. Hey, Pito.
Pito's a writer, producer, creator in town, and he did voiceover for an educational series that we did, and he was fantastic. So he still does occasional VO for us, and he and Chelsea and Cher and Steve, of course, is fantastic as well. All agreed to make an appearance in that video for us, and
very cool. All right,
fun walk down memory lane.
Yeah, it's really cool because we so I have a funny little thing here. We worked in an edit room. We worked on some cartoon reels, and we were in there for a couple months right before you left cartoon, I think. And I have a picture. To be fair, I have a picture of myself when I was in the edit room, but this will be funny to some people who've known you a long time. This is Dave when he was in the edit room with me. That's what he looked like. It's probably 10 years ago, right? 8 years ago. And then I am going to just move that over, Dave, and bring up a picture of myself when I was in the edit room. We were both a little bit younger. I was a lot thinner.
God. Love that.
Yeah.
By the way, KO calls that my Steve Jobs picture.
It's very much a Steve Jobs picture.
Taken in North Georgia when we were on the educational series that Pito hosted for us.
Oh, really?
For us.
Okay.
Yeah. You look good though.
I look better then.
I think my hair might have thinned since that picture.
That's No, I like the shaved head look. I mean, once I'm in the same boat, I'm gonna do it too.
I heard a comedian years ago describe it as Euroball. It's like, hey, if it starts to go, I'm just gonna embrace it and hold on to it, and that's what I've done.
Okay, we've got another comment from Michael Dangerfield. He seems to be our biggest fan today. He says, and I'm putting this quote up on the screen right now. I saw a brief shot of that Adult Swim biblical spoof in there.
Yes.
Remind us of the name, ? And can you share a favorite tale of that production?
Yes, I can. It is called the Rising Sun, SON, and basically it's an idea that I had that Mike Thomas, who's been on your show, helped me get produced. Basically, I had the idea that what if we told the tale of Jesus? Well, you know what I pulled up before this? I pulled up the actual treatment that I sold the show with, and the treatment says it's the best known story in the history of humankind, finally told the way it was meant to be as a cheesy soap opera. And usually a treatment will have all the details of what that means, but I just wrote, for story, summary, and character profiles, please see the Holy Bible. So it was basically, I thought, how funny would it be if you just kind of told Bible stories, but put it, I loved when I was in high school and college, I got hooked on soap operas like All My Children. Like literally my friends and I would sometimes make our class schedule in college around All My Children.
Okay.
So I thought, how funny, because it's just this fantasy, and like if they ever went outside, forget it. The grass isn't real. There's not a real tree behind them. Right. They're on a sound stage, so obviously. So we embraced that and applied it to this period piece that was literally done DC, during Christ is what I called it. Right. And instead of being, a humble carpenter, Joseph ran a more of an IKEA of its day. It was called intelligent design, which was a phrase about 10 years ago that kind of caught fire. And so we named it. So we did a lot. So the story of that show, though, is basically this. I had this idea, and I told Mike Thomas about it. He was running Turner Studios' original productions. Right. And he sent me an email, and it said, I'm going to make that. And I kind of laughed. And I'm like, yeah, people say I'm going to make that. But he meant it. So he took whatever money he could get together, and we shot a pilot. And we put it on a DVD, and we walked across the street and put it in a DVD player at Adult Swim. And Matt Harrigan watched it, and we didn't tell him anything about it because it's just too weird. The whole point was to just be weird but never acknowledge that you're being weird. Right. That's what made the show work. Right. You take it very seriously, but you're telling absurd stories. And the video ended, and Matt said, I've never seen anything like that before. And I thought, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like, I ain't never seen nothing like that before, And they called me a few days later, and they bought 3 more. But ultimately, it was, I think, too controversial, even at that time. It was before Black Jesus went on Adult Swim, preceded that by about 4 or 5 years. So that type of humor certainly wasn't family-friendly, user-friendly, even on their audio, even for their channel. I think there was some concern about that. But they did buy another show called The Restless Bell, which you also saw on that Sizzle reel. And I put the whole cast, the exact same cast, because they were great. They were just this wonderful group of local Atlanta actors. And we did a high school show, and I loved how 90210, all those shows always had like 20-somethings playing high school kids. Right. Well, we took it a little further. We had people who were like 35, 40 now playing high school kids. Oh, okay. But never acknowledging that they were 40 years old. Andrew Benader, who co-created the show with me, played the starring role. He's kind of the Richie Cunningham, and they all wore the red jackets, the leather jackets, and but he was a balding guy, not like this balding, but balding guy. And he mentions being a senior in high school and how cool that feels, and it's just ridiculous. Again, playing the goal in that show was to take things like your first kiss or your first cigarette. I haven't had my first cigarette yet, by the way, but I missed that one. But and then over dramatize it, like tell it through a cheesy soap opera lens. It was another soap opera because I just love soap opera. So we got to do that for 4 episodes of that as well. And again, just a blast. Both produced through Turner Studios with Fine Line Productions. And just a great. Both of those shows were a great experience.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, so we got about 15 minutes left. So I want to do advice, but before that, we're going to show this very funny video. It's the NASCAR water cooler video with Jay Moore, the comedian from SNL. It's a couple minutes long. Anything you want to say before we show it?
Jay hosted the show several times, and again, I don't want to tell everybody's great to work with, but Jay was great.
Okay. Here we go. This is NASCAR water cooler skit for the NASCAR Awards by Fine Line Productions.
People know me as Dale Earnhardt Jr. race car driver, but there's more to me than that.
And people call me Jay Moore, 6-time NASCAR Awards host, philanthropist, global icon, pain in the ass. But to the drivers, I'm Water Cooler Jay. Always happy to talk with them, help them, get them through tough times, back on track.
Hey, Matt, taking a pit stop?
Good one, Jay.
Thanks.
I was being sarcastic.
Sorry.
I bet your favorite movie, Jimmy Johnson, is Ocean's 7.
That's not a movie.
It's too bad, be a great title.
Someone keeps lowering my chair.
We can't keep doing this. Nobody's lowering your chair.
I'm telling you, someone's lowering my chair, Jay.
No one is lowering your chair. You're short. You're a short person.
Me, short? Have you seen Kyle Larson?
Did Austin Dillon say anything about me?
People talk about you all the time, say you have clammy hands, and your haircut is strange. You're from Missouri.
I am from Missouri, yes.
That's the show me state.
It is.
Yeah, when you show everybody some wins.
You show me some funny jokes.
Oh, look who's friends with Danica. Hey, Brad, what's up?
Can you believe Jay Moore's hosting? Poop emoji, poop emoji, poop emoji.
The atomic number of nitrogen is 7.
Okay, you just Googled that.
Danny, could you tell your guys to not leave packages for me in the morning? Because I'm a comedian, I'm never up before noon.
You know I don't deliver packages for FedEx, right?
Well, you picked a pretty goofy costume.
And the dream always ends the same way. Engine blows up, chase is over.
All right, your engine blows. Did you see the monologue? Kyle, why did you name your son after that European England Union thing?
His name is Brexton, not Brexit.
You just said the same thing.
Come on, Jay. You know I favor an inclusive European Union with open trade and borders.
That's what every driver says. 7 dwarves, 7 planets, 7 seas, 7 continents.
Yes, and I wish I was on a different one right now.
Are you on Twitter?
No.
Instagram?
No. What happened to your fire suit?
Dale Jr. wanted it back. How is he the most popular driver?
I know.
It's ridiculous. It's not even that cute.
That last guy kind of looked like Chris Cover there. I don't know who that driver is in the white, but it kind of looked like Chris Cover.
Oh, shoot. I forget he retired a few years ago. Yeah, that's funny,
Yeah.
Chris Cover. Yeah, another very talented Turner artist.
So, did you write that, or did a team write that, or someone else wrote that?
Yeah, combination. I have usually 2 or 3 other writers on the show. I'm called the supervising producer on that show, but essentially a head writer, but producing all those videos that we do that are the funny videos with the drivers. And it's funny. It was interesting to watch that one because sometimes schedules are crazy. Of course, you're in Vegas for just a few days. You get each driver for 15 minutes, which is not atypical in this business. You get, when you're working in sports especially, but you get an actor, you get somebody like, hey, they're going to be coming through for 10 minutes. You better get what you need and use it. And so that was basically the drill. We had 10 to 15 minutes with each driver to do 2 different pieces. And then Jay would speak across from them, and you got to show them their one line to memorize, but sometimes the driver schedules didn't match up. And so if you saw a tight shot of Jay, it's a very COVID-friendly piece, is why I'm mentioning this. Sometimes there was a 2 shot of both of them. But Jay's reaction might be to somebody who wasn't there, or they might be looking at my hand just basically because Jay's not there or whatever. They needed to deliver the line, So we cheated that sometimes because that's just what production is.
Right.
But Jay was great. I remember that shoot specifically. It's kind of fun watching that stuff because what he would do, he had his head writer, again, very similar to Drew Carey or whoever. But these guys often bring in the guys or girls with whom they're comfortable. And then we have our team with NASCAR or the Espys or Fine Line or whatever entity on the other side who knows the show itself, the tone of the show, the voice of the show, and wants to give them their platform for humor, but not lose what the show is. Because you can't just kind of blow up a show just because we have so-and-so hosting it. Anyway, so Jay had his head writer in there, a very funny guy, and we had a good rapport. And so Jay would be delivering lines, and I could walk over to him, and maybe one of my writers, or maybe I would think of a line and say, "What about this?" And if he likes it, he'll say, "Hey Jay, what about this?" And Jay would kind of laugh and go, "Okay, I'll do that. I'll do another take with that line." And he would have his own lines, of course, too, because Jay's a very funny guy. But I was like, wow, that's just so cool that he is open to whatever we throw at him. And if he doesn't like it, no, let's not do that one. What else you got? And that's kind of on the fly, live, not live, but on a shoot, on a set, I mean, that's just so much fun, right?
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. And I do have to say that Jay Moore is one of those guys, kind of like Kevin Nealon, that he's as good as the writing. You know what I mean? Like, he's already funny, but not in a way of John Belushi funny or Dan Aykroyd funny. He's funny, but if you give him the right material, he's really funny. And he was great in that that Tom Cruise agent movie.
Jerry Maguire.
Jerry Maguire. He was great in that because it was great writing. And in your piece, he's very funny because you guys all put together these great lines. But it's really, really funny, both of those pieces that you guys did. And the lines just keep hitting and hitting, you know. And I don't know if you saw me off camera, but I was chuckling the whole time.
Oh, good. Yeah. He is great. He's a very talented guy. It's fun when you get into a situation like that with a guy who just is open to what you're throwing at him and how to do it. Jerry Maguire, he was playing kind of a jerk, as I recall.
Yeah.
Right? He was not a.
He was like the bad
guy.
agent or the lying jerky
But
agent.
it's funny because in that piece that you just showed, he wanted to be self-deprecating. Like that line about the monologue about, you know, how about telling some funny jokes? I threw that line out there we had a script ready to go with 3 lines for every guy, basically. And it's like, I don't like that one. Let's do this one instead.
Right.
We had the guy. And then on top of that, but that was a line I threw out. And Jay's like, let's do that one. Because he wanted to have the drivers get the best of him. He's a smart guy. He knows that if he makes fun of the drivers, that's not going to make the NASCAR audience happy. I mean,
yeah. So he's got to make fun of himself,
Might make Jay's audience happy, but he knows that if I can do a little self-deprecating stuff and balance it out at the very least, why? So he's not afraid to, be the butt of the joke and stuff like that, which is what made that piece really work. So
let me get to one quick thing.
Sure.
Alan Hercules.
Hey, Alan.
Hey, Alan. Hey, Herc. Good to see you out there in the world. He has a question for you. Hey, Davey, what's your biggest challenge producing content during COVID-19?
Right now, convincing people they can still do it, right? I mean, a lot of, the corporations for whom we work are just working from home. But we can do graphics packages, which we have done. A lot of our shoots are like a little bit of live action and a lot of graphics. And so we can do that to let people know. But that's the main challenge right now is kind of like, how do we get back to normal, let people know that just because the world has stopped, that video production, there's still a way to get your message out. As far as the protocols for how to do it on the set and stuff, it hasn't been that difficult. Because again, when we realized like the Schuler Awards, to keep going back to that High School Musical Theater Awards, we can't have a giant dance number with 80 or 100 high school students on stage, and that's a bummer. But what can we do? So you just find out what you can do. Well, we can still have the host do this. We can record the reactions at home so that when we rerun it, we'll ask all the students who won to send us their video. And I think it was in the Sizzle reel, that girl jumps up and down and her dog jumps on her. And we're like, oh my God, this is so great.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
If we were in the Cobb Energy Center, she would have, stood up and cheered and smiled and gone on stage and given a speech, which would have been great. But in their homes, they were so uninhibited. We were like, wow, that was a bonus we did not expect to get this year in the show. So to have a genuine, like, I don't care, my dog's jumping on me, I'm jumping off the couch. We had several of those in the show. And yeah, it was great. So production can adjust. It's just, I think, convincing people that we can still go ahead and do it.
Yeah. And have you done anything where, because I've seen some productions where they're behind like a plexiglass or they're in another room and someone's recording with a camera and you don't even go into the other room, you're doing it remotely. Have you done anything like that, or has it been all virtual?
Yeah, we haven't used plexiglass per se, but yeah, we had somebody at the host's house for the Schuler Awards who was there working with him. But again, keeping your distance and all masked up, and your host wants to focus on being a good host. They don't want to worry about, okay, what button do I press?
Right. Exactly.
And I want them to do that too. As a producer on the show, I want them to be in their.
They have so many other things to concentrate
They've got
on.
a million things, and you got to build that trust. Faith Saley, you might know from CBS Sunday Morning. Mm-hmm. She's written a book. She's just all over the place. Oh, Wait, Don't Tell Me, NPR's funny radio show every Saturday, the news show. She hosts for us for the last 8-9 years the Georgia Tech Adventure Prize, which is it's kind of like Shark Tank live on stage, but Shark Tank pre-records and does funny sound bites and you know probably interviews for 20 or 30 minutes to get a 6 or 7 minute segment. Ours is live. It's an hour and a half on PBS, commercial free, of students presenting their inventions and then getting grilled by judges. And then at the end of the hour and a half, we award a prize. And that's grown to the ACC Adventure Prize, an annual show that all the schools across the ACC send their one best inventing team, innovation team to, and they all compete. We did it out of NC State's campus last year. This year got pushed until next year, of course, because it was just after things got kind of crazy. But and we had a virtual plan ready to go, but at some point it just wasn't. It was the right decision not to do it for everybody's own safety. Even the virtual version, it was just too much. Anyways, Faith hosts both of those shows for us, and I think from the day we met, I'm very big on this. I learned this in a cartoon, I think from Michael O'Lean, who now runs Adult Swim. You probably remember Michael from your days at Turner. One of the best bosses I've ever had. Just I don't use this word very often, but visionary. Michael just like he has an idea of what he wants it to be, and he's very good at communicating it to you. And then when you're more of this, he's very good at helping you get the idea to what he sees, or taking an idea that you have and I didn't see that, but let's do that instead. He was great. Anyways, he taught me the importance of when you have a host, when you have a team. I think I learned at cartoons that you have that pre-shoot dinner. So I talked to the folks at Georgia Tech during the Adventure Prize, like we should have a dinner with you guys, with our host, with our director, Tony Marshall, a great director, and directs that show for us. I don't know if you know Tony from Turner. He directed my Adult Swim shows as well.
Okay, yeah, I've heard the name.
A longtime Turner guy, T-Bone, Tony Marshall. Anyways, so you have this dinner, and the first night we had a different host the first year, but the second year I produced the show, Faith came in and we had dinner, and we were just like a brother and sister. It felt like we know each other for 20 years. And we just started making each other laugh. And so we have this great rapport. So when she hosts the show, it's just, she trusts me and I trust her. And, you don't have to worry about any it's all shorthand. You don't have to worry about like, oh, will that work or not? Last year, they made a very late change in the show, and the student coming out was the replacement to present the trophies. And so Faith had the wrong name and prompter. And so as people are entering, I'm in her IFB saying, okay, Faith, say the first two names, but don't say the third one. I'll give you to that. It's changed. I'll give it to you at the right time. And she kind of gives me a nod on the monitor, but nobody in the audience knows she's nodding to me.
Right.
But I saw that she heard me, so that's good. And I said, and Elizabeth, Smith or whatever.
Right.
And she goes, and Elizabeth Smith. And I'm like, nobody knows. That's the fun stuff.
Yeah, that's really fun. All right, so we're getting close to the end here. Let's go to advice, and if you can just talk about any advice you would give to younger people switching careers that want their own production company, that are writers, that are producers. I mean, you've done a lot of it during the show, but anything else you want to add?
Yeah, it's something I mentioned the first thing about when you get your opportunity, double your efforts. When they asked me for 10 jokes a day when I first started writing for David Letterman, I never sent less than 20. So the one is seize every opportunity, give way more effort than they've asked for, So that's part of it. But as far as for young people trying to get into the business, I have young writers and stuff coming to me quite often. A friend will say, oh, my son wants to write or my niece wants to write. And so, yeah, happy to hop on the phone with them. I tell them this, figure out what you need to live. If this is a passion business. You don't do it for stability. I mean, you got to build your company, you got to build your brand, you got to build your resume to get work. So if you want to do this, make sure you're passionate enough to do it, and then figure out what you really need to live. If you're 22, are you still living with your parents, or do you need to rent a place? Is that $500 a month? Do you have a car payment? Do you have health insurance? How much do you need for food? Be realistic. Do you want to go out a couple times a month? Not now, but will you want to go out with your friends a couple times a month? $50, $100? Figure out, okay, I'm with my parents. I don't have rent. I don't have a car. I do have a car, whatever. I need $1,200 a month to live my life right now. Great. Go find a job tending bar, driving DoorDash. Find a job that will give you $1,200 a month or $800 a month or $200 a month
Right.
if you're living with your parents and they're buying food or whatever. Find a job that will give you that. Spend every other waking minute pursuing your passion. If you want to be a makeup artist, use it to read bios on makeup artists, make phone calls, see if somebody will let you hang out on their film set, or talk to you on the phone about their career, a meet and greet. That's what they used to call it back in LA in the day when I had an agent who would get me a meet and greet, right?
Right.
So you make the money you need to live and spend every other waking minute pursuing your craft passionately. Because once you get a job, and I've seen this at places, we were like, oh, I'm making enough to live, I'm paying my rent, I got a nice car. You forget about the fire that was in your belly, and you don't maybe push as hard to pursue it. You're like, oh, this is good enough, I'm good. Well, if you're tending bar, if you're driving DoorDash, and nothing against those jobs, but if you're doing that, if that's not what you want to do forever, you'll keep the fire. And that's the way to do it, I think.
Right. I think that's really good advice, man. I haven't heard that. I did hear from my friend Bob the 10,000 hour rule, where you need to work on something 10,000 hours to get good at it. And I think, I have 3 kids that are young. You have younger kids, like giving them advice about the future and stuff, that it's just not going to happen in a year. It's not, they want things instantly.
Right.
And, my daughters want to be doctors. My son wants to be a computer engineer. Those are long roads. Those are not quick hits. So, like you said, spending the time, whether you're right, like John Viner, the Family Guy writer, said that he loved those shows before he worked on them, and he loved them before the very first shows, and
Right.
He also said that the people he was working with were in the same mindset. They were the same age. It wasn't like they were 20 years older or 20 years younger. They're all in their 30s, and they all found the same things funny. So finding a group of friends, and I've also heard going to classes, going to a writing class. If you want to be a writer, you meet people there. 3D guy went to a class, and someone from the class hired him to do 3D. So all these things can help.
Networking is huge, yeah.
Networking is huge. But this has been great, Dave.
Yeah,
Totally
it's fun.
appreciate it. So good to talk to you again after sitting with you in an edit room 10 years ago. And your production company looks great. Anything you want to say as far as people finding your production company online?
Thanks. Yeah. FineLineProductions.com. That's kind of a pretty good descriptor of what we are and great samples of our work, whether it's for the web or TV or corporate. And we have a YouTube channel as well, Fine Line Productions. I'm pretty visible on the web, so it's not hard to find me. And or Facebook. We have a presence on Facebook as well. So thanks for letting me do that. Thanks to Herc and Danger for chiming in.
Yes, thanks, guys.
Some old Turner folks.
Right, and Mike Thomas for getting us together. He suggested it, and so really, man, this has been great. Thank you so much, and we will talk again soon. And hopefully, work together someday.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sean.
All right, thanks, Dave. You have a great day.
See you, buddy.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.